Welcome to ViviTalks. I'm Vivienne Aerts. Join me in celebrating 100 talented female musicians from my last album, type of thing. Empowering female cacao farmers in Congo's Virunga State Park and restoring the rainforest. Delve into the musical journeys, creative processes, and unique perspectives of these talented women that were involved in the making of this album. Today I'm talking with Ester Wiesnerova, international active composer, vocalist, educator, originally from Slovakia, currently living in New York. She was recently awarded the Gunther Schuller Medal and named in the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Her original compositions have been performed at prestigious festivals worldwide. She was invited to perform her original music at venues such as Flagey in Brussels, Wuhan Concert in China, the Piano Man in New Delhi, and Regattabar in Boston. Ester received her graduate degree in jazz composition at the England Conservatory and her undergraduate degree at Berklee College of Music.
Esther, welcome to my podcast. I'm very excited to have you, and it's been such a pleasure to get to know you over the years. It's been a while. We met at Berklee. I don't even know what year, maybe 2015, 16, 17, a while ago.
Probably
We collaborated on a bunch of projects, and for everybody that's listening, I'd love to learn a little bit more about your background. Tell me where you're from, what do you do, what brought you here?
Hi, Vivienne. Thanks for having me. That's a very broad question. But I'll try. I am from Slovakia, and music brought me here, and I have been doing music my whole life, really. My mom was a professional musician and piano teacher, political songwriter, and so with her, I would always, write songs, play the piano, compose a little bit of my own music, and the dream was to do jazz, so I came here to do that. That's the short version.
So you moved to Boston in what year was that?
2013.
To study at Berklee.
To study at Berklee, yes.
What was your experience?
I was so excited to be there, and I really want to take advantage of everything. I was never sure how long I'm going to stay. Because of our financial situation, it was a big thing for me to be even able to go there. I actually fundraised my entire studies. So before there was crowdfunding, there was Esther looking up the list of richest people in Slovakia according to Forbes and emailing every single one and asking them if they wouldn't send me to a college. And some did. Which is great. But every semester I thought, this will be the last. There's no resources for the next one, and then always somehow it worked out. But I think that made me really take advantage of all the resources that were available at Berklee, and just explore it fully. And I had a great time, and I'm very grateful for the community there, especially. I think that was something truly special about that. There's quite no other place like it.
That's right. Yeah. And you joined the Global Jazz program?
I did, yes. And I think that was actually our connection, because there are very few vocalists in the program. Yeah. I really liked the Global Jazz program for the time when I was there. Then I wanted to focus on writing a little more. My own music, so I stepped out and focused more on composition.
And then afterwards, you went back to Slovakia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then to do a master's program back in Boston.
Okay, no, not quite. So I started my master's in Boston first. I just stayed, and then only during COVID I really moved back home to Slovakia. So 2020, that was after my master's. In between my master's, I went to India for a year. That was a whole other adventure. Yeah.
I love to hear more about that experience. But first, tell me about your master's.
Okay, so master's was at the England Conservatory, a very different school from Berklee. very detailed, more a little more maybe traditional in the approach to the students, but not quite in the musical taste, and much smaller. And I really enjoyed that program as well. I think I really needed it after Berklee. That's can feel a little overwhelming at times. It's a lot of students. I mean, we're talking thousands. A while at NEC, we're talking hundreds, and my jazz program was like 30 people that year. So I knew everybody in the program, very much unlike Berklee. And I think it felt really nice to be in a closer sort of environment, and I think experience the level of detail that the professors were putting in, like especially in my like one-on-ones. We would easily spend like the entire hour on one measure of my composition. So really like focused work. Yeah, so I really had a great time there as well.
And you focused mainly on experimental or modern composition or performance?
It was officially still jazz composition, so the same major as I did at Berklee. But I did a lot of songwriting. I studied with Dominic Eid, who is a songwriter vocalist, so we worked quite a bit on that. I worked quite a bit on my technique as well, so it's kind of open. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I love to hear. So you went back, and then it was COVID, so you became entrepreneurial again, right? What to do when you're stuck? I love to hear because you started something amazing. I want to hear everything about.
Well, I think I've always been entrepreneurial to begin with. It wasn't COVID that made me. Well, this actually started even before I started Berklee. So when I was emailing all of these Forbes people, as I mentioned, I was already telling them, this is me at the age of 18, fresh graduated from high school, that I'm going to go study in the US, and then I will take Berklee and I'll bring it home because we have nothing like it. In Slovakia, it's only possible to study classical music. And it's done, not always, but it tends to be done in a little more like Russian school type of way, which can be quite rigid and not that creative and not that open. Very rarely the students are encouraged to write their own music or to improvise or to like apply the music theory they're learning. And I found that it discouraged a lot of people from music completely, and that those who were doing music did just not discover that aspect. And I wanted to change that. So that's why I wanted to bring Berklee home. And I started very small. In the summers when I was home, I would organize a small workshop, first day long, then 3 days long, then 5 days long. And I was very lucky to have two other women my age who had the same story. They studied abroad, and we all at the same time felt that we want to do the same thing, that we want to bring whatever we experienced back home. And so it was going for a while before COVID, but in COVID, suddenly all three of us were home. So that was a big thing because we were all living abroad. And we had time to actually put into this project. And so we really did. And we, employed some people, we got some grants, and it started being much more than just a summer workshop, which is now still our staple. It's like a week-long program. There is a wait list for it. People really love it. But we also do lots of like online courses, and we go to schools, and we do regular jam sessions that are open, genre-wise, open to all levels, like professional musicians playing with beginners, like helping each other. That's sort of the idea, like creating a welcoming, open community in music. Yeah, and it's been really, really beautiful to watch. There are about 650 students every year going through the program. So it's getting kind of big. There are 7 people working for it, some part-time, some full-time. Exciting times.
Yeah, that's amazing. You got your own school now. So you have to, and so eventually you got back to New York, and I was excited because we're actually neighbors, and that's just fun. We can have coffee and all. So what brought you back to New York then?
Um, I really enjoyed being in Slovakia because I have the project there, and also I was able to create quite a bit. I created an album during lockdown, really, and that the space that the place provides is just really it's something special. Yet I felt like I'm missing collaborations, which are just so natural in in a bigger city, and I felt like I'm missing the community from both of my schools, and that the community was something that was giving me a lot of drive and something that kept me going. And I had a little hard time recreating that by myself. And so I kept feeling like I want to come back. And so I got my artist visa, and first I came to Boston because that's what felt the most familiar. Then after a few months, I felt like, okay, it's time to go to a city that's a little more intense and more saturated with musicians, and I'm really glad I did.
I love to hear more about your album and your writing. Can you describe, first of all, a little bit about your creative process and how you approach writing and composing your music?
The process is ever changing, so I'm just going to tell you the one I'm sort of using now. But a lot of my music describes what I am going through, and for that I think I need to be really in tune with whatever I am experiencing. And so I try to be very intentional about that. I try to journal. I try to carve out time alone where I first just like kind of dig in, and then I try to bring it to music. And I find that that mindset is very, very important for me. That's sort of like quiet and closed and very like inward. Um, and I find a lot of inspiration in nature. I use a lot of like bird sounds, and very often when I'm writing a piece, I'm thinking about a particular setting, or there's also in the lyrics there will be a particular metaphor. Like let's say, I know we're working with an ocean, and so I'm thinking, okay, what does that sound like in all aspects, right? Musically, what does that sound like? Rhythmically, what would the melody do? Okay, here's the waves part. Here's we're in this quiet ocean. Here's the beach. Here's the kids running. So I have like very visual ideas of what is going on there. And I try to bring it to music. And I don't think the listener would know exactly right what's going on, but I think they can feel it and they get the picture. And it's what I keep hearing as well, that the compositions are colorful. And I think that's what it really really is. And I am a very visual thinker in general. What else did I tell you about my writing? I often read the lyrics first. I think that's sort of the first thing for me. Here in New York, I tend to ride on the train a lot, or really just whenever like walking, I would have a little line come to my head, and then the music tends to come later, sort of by the piano.
Do you scribble in a book, or do you record it in your phone, or do you have a notepad?
For the lyrics, I read it into my phone just because that's what I always carry around. But for the music, I use like physical note sheet. Like I write the notes down first. Actually, the very first thing is I record it, and only then I write it by hand, and then I write it into my computer. That shows like the stages of how set I am on it. If it's just an idea, it's recorded. If it feels like a good idea, that is written, and if it's like this is it, then that's when it goes into the computer.
And do you think about different ensemble size or different collaborations while you're writing it, or you come up with that later?
Yes. So I really enjoy arranging. And even in the process of writing, I am already thinking about who is going to be playing this, and it influences so much the way I write it. Uh, yeah, because I'm thinking of the personality, I'm thinking of the sound, I'm thinking of whether there's someone who, wants to have a lot of space, or, who would rather be in a supportive role, what range is the best for them. So that makes it really fun for me. Like it's a little bit of an empathic journey when writing for someone specific.
A very cool thing about your music is that you use a couple of unconventional instruments, right? You've been going on tour with harp in a jazz experimental setting. That's not so common, but I think it's amazing. How did you come up with that?
I started working with harpists quite early on, actually. Back in Slovakia already, my graduation concert from high school was with a harpist. I just always liked the sound. I never I never really enjoyed working with guitar for some reason. I had a hard time hearing things somehow, I think because of the way they're voicing things and because I grew up playing piano. Um, and it was just more natural to me. And somehow with harp, it felt like it sounds kind of close to a guitar, but it's somehow there's more clarity to me because harpists actually play the piano voicings, but on a string instrument. Uh, and they were thinking in a much more colorful ways usually because they come from classical music where really all they do are these like gigantic like arpeggios. So it's a different way of thinking. Yeah, and I realized I really enjoy working with them. And then I found a very particular harpist. We need to say this that the harpist I work with, I have never found anyone like him anywhere. We did the Global Jazz program together. This is Charles Overton. And he is really equally versed in jazz and in classical music. So it's with him it was just so easy to bring this music to life, and he helped me a lot as well with what the instrument can do, and we would meet and sort of workshop it a little bit. So he was very kind like that, and then I brought him to Slovakia to record and rented a harp. Yeah, I don't recommend having a harp in your band though. So it's a very difficult instrument to tour with, I need to say.
At some point, I was doing a podcast with Tara Minton for the jazz. She has this jazz podcast, and she's like, "Oh, I know Esther. We've been to Mexico for concerts," and I was like, "Oh, she's good people." So whenever and she's like, "You should come to London." So at one point, I hit her up. I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we did I did a collaboration with Tara, and we're gonna do another one in mid-September.
Yeah, she's amazing, and she's one of the few. There are so few jazz harpists, and they all know each other.
Which is good because they
Yeah.
can borrow each other's harp.
Oh, that's a big part of it actually, because harp can't fly, right? So
Yeah.
whenever you go, you need to borrow a local harp. But it's a funny little world that started entering a little bit.
Yeah.
It's such a niche, such a niche group.
I love to hear a little bit about then how do you put the music on a stage, and how can you maybe share a significant moment when your music had an impact on somebody's life, or what's that to be on stage?
I really love performing, and I see it as a very important role. I'm someone who likes to, change the world in everything I do, or have that attitude, I think. I don't really enjoy doing things that I don't feel like are doing that. And with performance, I really think it can change lives, and I've been seeing that since I was very little. And that's the reason I really started doing music, is that with my mom we would go play, in prisons or for all kinds of disadvantaged communities. And I just felt like the people who entered the room and the people who left the room after we stopped playing were different people. That like something just changes there. And I know that, for example, when we would go to a psychiatric hospital, that the day when we performed, they actually, some people did not have to take meds at all, or like less meds. Like it actually worked as a medicine. And the staff would just tell us like it's as if it's like a very normal thing. Like, yeah, that's how it works. Like the day we have a concert here, we don't have to. And I feel like it's not talked about as much as it should be, because music is still seen as this like it's like a cheesecake, like something just nice, you can get, but it and it feels good, but I think it's so much more than just like feeling good. Like it's an actual medicine. Yeah, so when I perform, I keep trying to think of what I'm trying to bring to these people. Like what is the essence, and really stand in that. And I think for me, my music isn't super like joyful, danceful, but it's more on the peaceful side. And so, which is a difficult mindset to get in sometimes when one is on tour for 2 weeks, I could tell you that. But I try to channel that and really bring it to the audience in everything we do, so that they feel rested after. They maybe feel like they cleaned their head a little bit, maybe organized it a little bit. That's what I'm hoping to bring.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'd love to hear about you. You went to India. How was that? What did you do?
That was teaching. It was my first ever college teaching work. I was 22 or 23, I think, younger than some of the students I had there. And this is a Berklee affiliated school in New Delhi. I was there for 1 semester, teaching and training, teaching voice, music and society, which is kind of what I was just talking about, and some songwriting. And had a really, really great time. I never lived in Asia before. It was my first time, and it felt like after living in Europe for a while, in the US, that there's this whole other world I really wanted to explore. I had a lot of very close friends from different parts of Asia when I was studying at Berklee, and it felt like I want to know more.
Would you go back?
I don't think I would go back to live, but I would definitely go back to visit. It kind of felt to me like a continent on its own. I think India it's such a like unique place, and I loved many aspects about the culture. I loved the depth. I feel like it's way easier to talk very deep with people like right after you meet them. They're just kind of used to living in that part of themselves. What was tricky for me was how intense it was. It's intense scents, intense sounds, a lot of people, a lot of colors. And I'm someone who can get sensory overwhelm even in like my Slovakian village. So sometimes it was really a lot for me, and tiring in some ways. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like an amazing experience, though.
It was intense and amazing.
Tell me a little bit about Blue Journal, the album you made that comes with an actual journal.
So that is my first album, and that's the one that was recorded during the pandemic. It started being created, I think, around the time we met at Berklee. And it's about the journey of me looking for who I really am in all of these new places, right? So discovering who I am as a Slovakian in the US, then as a Slovakian who came back, but isn't quite the same as I was before. Well, the environment hasn't changed as much. who I am as a woman in music, as a woman in all these cultures. So like a identity search, I think, in many ways. And I recorded it in COVID, so this meant we needed all kinds of special permissions for people to enter the country. Luckily, Slovakia is small enough to make that possible. And so I flew in a Japanese percussionist, I flew in the harpist from the US, Charles, there was a British saxophonist and Slovakian double bass player. And my parents very kindly left their home. I went to my apartment in the city, and we all stayed in my parents' place. There were no restaurants open. There were just like people from the community bringing us food because we sometimes cooked for us, but we wanted to really spend the time rehearsing. So there were quite a few friends who would just like, bring us food, and we were only in that house. Like we could not really go anywhere else. We like would go for a walk by the river, but that was about it. And in this very unique time, we were doing this like very intimate, deep music, and I think it was really something special. We were also all a little insecure because at this time most of us have not played with other people for like a year. And then suddenly we're here to record an album, and we're all like not sure if we can even still play anymore and can even still listen anymore, and what's it going to sound like and feel like. And I can hear a little bit of that somehow in the music still, and I think that was really, that brought some special essence to it. And so after a week in my parents' house in my teeny tiny hometown of Partizánske, is what it's called, we went to Vienna to record the album, and that was it. No tour, nothing. We could really play out. So then everyone went home, and I started working more on the packaging. I was envisioning some sort of immersive experience so that people, when they listen to the music, they can also write down whatever they are experiencing, like make it an actual journal, because that's how a lot of the music came about. As I mentioned, it was like me journaling, me experiencing and me sort of looking for who I am in all these settings. And I wanted people to have that same experience. So I collaborated with 4 Slovakian female artists. They're all sort of my age. And one was making journals, like hand making them. The other one was making clothes for us for all our photo shoots. The third one was a graphic designer, and then a photographer. And so all of us would meet on Zooms, and I would just sort of talk about the music. I would play some of the music, and together we created a handmade journal that goes with the album. So when someone opens it, they can see photos going with each song. There's always a photo of the same place, but altered in different ways to fit the mood of the song. And then there are lyrics in English and translated to Slovakian. There are bits of the lyrics jumping at the listener as they are going through the book. There are some photos, and then at the very end, there's the actual CD, which honestly many people can't even play anymore. So that's another reason why I think to have this, it's really good to have this experience, that people have something to buy and to experience with the music. Yeah, exactly. They have a book, even if they don't actually listen to the CD, but just play it off Spotify or wherever they listen to music.
Right. Amazing. And then later on, you did go on tour with this material, right?
Later, we toured quite a bit with it, actually. We did Europe several times. Central Europe. We went to the UK because Tara, our mutual harpist friend, was there. We did 2 weeks in Mexico, which were amazing, with our rental harp over. In Mexico City, they have these gigantic speed bumps. It's the biggest speed bumps I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if you've ever been there. And so we had the harp in our car, and we just get these drivers who like somehow did not understand the value of this instrument. Exactly. And so on every speed bump, the harp would literally go like And
Oh
yeah,
God.
and then everybody in the car was just like, ah! What are we gonna do? We were so scared because it's borrowed, it's true, and it's super expensive. Yeah, but the harp made it through Mexico, so they're doing. So I think everything's
Yeah,
okay.
they do know how to drive.
And we tried to explain it to the drivers, but it just seems like this concept, like it's not going through.
Yeah. I love to hear a little bit about what advice, um, or as a teacher, what do you try to um, help your students with?
It's really, I always try to find what that particular student is looking for, what their goals are, and just sort of be there on the way and get them the best that I can. So I don't think it's a particular thing I'm always trying to teach, but very often people come to me when they're trying to be more creative in what they do. So it's people who already have some technical knowledge of their instrument or their voice, but they're looking for more improvisation. They're looking to become more, maybe write more music or like new ways to write new music. They're looking for prompts, techniques, arranging techniques. So that's a lot of what it ends up being. And I really actually enjoy that. Like that's my favorite thing to teach. These sort of more creative subjects. I can do the technique part as well, but that's not as fun and as personal because through this I get to know them as well, and I get inspired too by seeing how they look at the same prompt. Maybe I got myself, but I looked at it from an entirely different perspective.
Earlier you talked a little bit about being a woman in music, and I'd love to ask, because obviously my album is with a lot of women, and I'd love to hear a little bit about you. Have you faced any stereotypes or biases, or how do you challenge or overcome them?
Oh, it's a big question. I think I always felt very different being a woman in jazz specifically because it's very much a boys' club. And I discovered that so early. I think the first year even I got interested in jazz, which maybe I was 15, 16, is when I started to look for some private teachers back in Slovakia. And I realized there are no women. Like there wasn't one who would teach me. And so it ended up, me being 16-year-old who is going to the homes of all of these like men in their 40s and 50s. And sometimes it ended well, like they actually taught me something, but a lot of times it was just like incredibly uncomfortable, and there were all kinds of jokes, and yeah, it just did not feel right. And I think that was a big part of why I actually wanted to start a school, because I felt like this was such an unsafe environment. It is not what anyone should go through if they're just looking to learn something. And that it should be institutionalized and just like make sure that people are actually safe, because many times I did not feel safe. And I'm very happy to see that is what is happening. And I'm also very happy to see that there are a lot of women applying to the programs. Like it's nearly always 50-50 men and women. And I think it's because, 3 women started the program. And we don't, it's not intentionally like, oh, this is, female empowerment program, or we don't even really talk about it that, okay, we are going to do this to make sure women are there. But I think very natural they are there because we are there and we started it, and sort of just the energy that we bring is there, that is very welcoming and very community oriented, important for us. Yeah, and people feel it, and I'm very happy to see all of these women, like go after the program. Like actually, this month there are 2 Slovakian songwriters coming into New York, and And that's also something new that I see a lot of Slovaks like going abroad, studying abroad, which I think I was one of the first sort of who did that. But now there are more people who are courageous, who are going after it, and I think I mean, I'm sure it's also our example. It's not just that. You know, I know the world is different now with Instagram and whatever. Like they see more of their heroes and they feel closer to them. But I think it's also partially because of the work we did, and I'm so happy to see women like going more after their dreams and being more courageous in music and outside of music.
Do you see a difference between the culture in Slovakia and the culture in America regarding this topic?
It's a good question. I mean, it's definitely a little more progressive here. A lot of the experiences I still get back home, I think would never happen here. And if they did, the community would be outraged. I think people are very intentionally trying to include women now, at least, not everybody, but it's at least talked about, and it's a big thing, you know, like if there would be a festival lineup, let's say, with absolutely no female artists in the US, I think people would say something. Well, that's something that happens. It's very common for this to happen in Slovakia. Or like really anything that's jazz, there's barely ever any woman. And if there is, it's one, and it's the vocalist. So we still have a long way to go. But I think that's just because all of these things at this point are run by men, and who are of an older generation, and I don't think they quite got the notes that things are changing. So I think once that's going to shift around, I'm hoping that this would look different. The representation will be different, and also the music will probably be different, I think, because of that. And I'm excited for that. I like the music women make. I can relate to it more. It's very often.
That's so well said. Thank you for that. What advice would you give young aspiring women who are just starting out their journey?
It sounds so cliche, but I think just being yourself and not feeling like the correct way is the way it's been done. Because I think that took me a very long time to realize as a composer as well, that I see the world differently, and my inspiration looks differently, and the way I write is different than most of the men who were teaching me and most of my classmates who were men. And so the music is going to be different, and that doesn't mean that that's wrong. It's just different. Because when in school, you know, I'm trying to learn the right way to do it, right? So if everyone is doing it differently, I feel like, well, maybe that's just not correct. You know, but that's not true. So I think just being confident in who they are and what they do, and believing in it.
Yeah, I really like that. It is very important. And then how do you navigate the balance between staying true to your artistic vision and paying rent, right? Making ends meet, surviving in New York. How do you?
Well, I think I'm a little lucky because I actually enjoy teaching, and I think for a lot of people that's an income. For a lot of musicians, that's an income, but they sort of dread it. They just do it because they have to. But I really like it, so that's where a lot of my income comes from. I try to be just creative about where all of this money could be brought in, and it's really multiple income streams. Like today I am recording some music for a video game, like a voiceover, and then I'm, you know, teaching an online lesson, and then I'm doing something in person, and then I'm doing a recording at someone's place. So it's very different income streams. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Not being dependent on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it could be all music, but yeah, spread yourself out, especially in the beginning. Love to hear about new projects or goals or things coming up that you're excited about. What's in store?
Well, New York is this whole new adventure for me still at this point. So I'm collaborating with quite a few people, and we'll see what happens. But there's one album that is being mixed right now that should be coming out. I'm hoping this year it's really going to happen. It's a duo album with my former Berklee classmate. We co-wrote all the music. He's a pianist and a vocalist. So it's going to be much smaller, much more intimate project. All of the songs are called after cities. So there is Boston, there is Manhattan, and then some random places like Portland, Maine. So that I'm very excited about. And then there's going to be a continuation of the Blue Journal, and I am writing that right now. I'm sort of 3/4 through. I think it's going to be a different colored journal. So you can be on the lookout for that.
So we have to do a contest who guess the color right, huh?
We can.
Nice. I'm very excited about it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for first of all being on my album. And so fun to hear everything about your projects and your background and your dreams. Everybody should check out. I'll put the links in description so they can all check you out and follow. Thanks for being in my podcast.
Thank you, Vivienne.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
As I conclude this episode of ViviTalks, I want to express my sincere gratitude for joining me in this musical journey. I hope you enjoyed exploring the stories and experiences of the incredible female musicians on my album. To stay updated on our latest episodes, subscribe to ViviTalks on your favorite podcast platform. Connect with me on social media through Vivienne, and please check out my album Type of Thing, a musical exchange featuring 100 female musicians to empower female cacao farmers of Virunga State Park in Congo. It's about more than just music. It's about making a positive impact in the world. Your support is part of that journey, so thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, keep celebrating the power of music, and let's continue to amplify the voices of remarkable women in the industry. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep the music flowing. With love and gratitude. Till soon.